Guest all the way from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And I know we have a lot of Malaysians listening in right now. So tune in, listen to what he has to say. Now, this gentleman, his name is Anwar Jumabhoy, and he has over 40 years of experience in business and in management. And one of the things that caught my eye, and reason why I wanted to interview and have a conversation with Anwar is this. He says, you do not have to be an entrepreneur. So you don't have to own a business to be an entrepreneur. Let me correct that. You do not have to own a business to be an entrepreneur. Now, listen very carefully. If you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a corporate executive, if you are working as an employee, listen to what this gentleman has to say. And he's the author of the book, which he's going to tell us about at the moment, which is about entrepreneurism. And so I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation right now. Anwar, welcome to the Business Success Show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what's led you to do what you do.
Thanks, Mac, for having me on this show. And it's really interesting to have. And, you know, the way that exchanges have also moved, right? So we no longer want to have canned content, and people want to know about other people and how they get there.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, the journey started, I worked for a number of years and in a shipyard. And in fact, I worked in 2 shipyards, one in the UK and then one in Singapore.
Was that Newcastle?
And then I went, yeah, in Newcastle on Tyne,
okay,
you know,
okay.
and up north when it was the Margaret Thatcher years. So
oh, wow.
A lot of resentment from the people working there against the government, which didn't make sense to me, you know, I mean, but, you know, I came from Malaysia where if you don't work, you don't earn, the state doesn't support you.
True.
And go to the UK and suddenly if you don't work and you don't earn and you don't want to take a job, the state supports you. So that was a bit of a culture shock for me. But, you know, so I worked, and then I had another phase where I tried to start a couple of businesses, and you know, all of them went bust. And so I went to work, started a business, I went back to work, they started a business and went back to work. So, you know, I had the experience of losing money. And then I ended up working for an entrepreneurial company. And, you know, that's where I ended up. So I fell in love with entrepreneurship, and I saw it from being entrepreneurial in an organization, from being an entrepreneur, and from working with entrepreneurs. And it seemed to me that entrepreneurship is really the root of all management practice. You know, throw away all these models, these, you know, that people tell you, draw this grid, draw that grid. Do what makes sense. Go back to your roots, and everybody is an entrepreneur. It's just that with a lot of organizations, you know, when you join the organization, they actually would like to hire robots, but they can't get robots, so they end up with people.
Right.
And they tell these people, please park your entrepreneurship outside. When you come and work for me, just do what I tell you. Go figure. Why should I work? Why should I work for you?
Exactly. Well, okay. Whilst we're talking about this, because I think it's a great, great topic, entrepreneurism. How would you define what an entrepreneur is? What's the definition of an entrepreneur?
You see, the problem is that when you get into a definition, my definition is very simple.
Okay.
Entrepreneurs are not different people. They just do things differently. And anybody who does things differently is an entrepreneur.
Right.
And we do different things in our whole life. We're born entrepreneurial. You know, we take risks, we have passions, we follow, we learn, and it all stops. It seems like it stops when we go to work for an organization. So I tell organizations when I speak to them that if you behave this way, you're not going to be able to hire the people that matter, that count, that are going to build your business. You're going to end up with pseudo robots. How is it going to end for you? Not well, I don't think.
And what's the problem with that for organizations who want to hire A-grade students, people who are just going to be told what to do and they'll just follow through? As a corporate culture, or company culture, or a business trying to grow, what's the key problem with that?
You see, a lot of these organizations suffer from being so focused on process. They look back and something went wrong about, you know, 300 years ago. I'm just kidding. Something went wrong maybe 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So they implement some rule, right? Then something went wrong 5 years ago, and then they still implement that rule, right? And then they have a process to present information and manage their people, which is 10 years old.
Right.
They never re-looked at, you know, how can technology help? So they've got all this baggage. And then they've got people who say, if I don't do this, I might not have a job. So let me make sure everybody does this. So they have what I call custodians of procedure. Now, these guys had legitimate reason to be there, but the custodians of procedure end up, what do? They handcuff you. And these guys sit in finance department, in HR department, in legal, and all they try and tell you is you can't do this. And you ask why, and they say it's because it's against the procedure. I'm like, but won't we build better customer service? Won't we have more clients? Won't we get better room rates? Yeah, but that's not my job. My job is just to make sure you don't do this and don't do it this way. I mean, and you know, young people, they have so many choices. It's so easy today to start a business. And there are so many businesses I know in the last 12 months that have raised money from people they've never even seen, met, or had a coffee with.
Just because of the entrepreneurial approach.
Exactly. No, and because there's so much money out there looking to back the right people, that there are so many opportunities for young, bright people to start a business. And these are the same people you need to hire, because if you don't hire them, they'll either start a business, or they'll end up working for your competitor, or they'll compete with you.
Right.
And, you know, all this nonsense, you know, a lot of these companies get stuck in this hiring trap, right? What I call a boxed world. Yeah. So, you know, they sit in this boxed world, and because you don't have, and, you know, they have this sort of boxed world, right? Because you don't have a degree, you don't have this, so I can't hire you. Right? And somebody who goes through life learning like this with no limits may not have a degree. Yeah. But you can't be bothered to find out whether they can do the job or not. So you say, oh, I only can hire from inside the box. So what's going to happen over a period of time? How many people are in the box? Not many.
So yeah, I hear your point. And you are disrupting the management, the leadership, the corporate world with your thinking. It's fresh. It's a fresh approach, which is fantastic. And you wrote the book, and I know there are 9 entrepreneurisms, you call it. Can you run through some of them or all of them with us? And what are those 9 entrepreneurisms that people should adopt, whether they're working as an entrepreneur or they are a corporate person?
So we came up with 9 after doing some research and about 100 interviews, and that was what went into the book.
100. Okay.
And so we came up with 9 traits. You know, for want of a better word, people say it's a trait. It's not. It's a practice.
Right.
Right. It's like you talk about discipline, balance. Were you born with balance? No. But you strove to achieve it, and you got it because it's a discipline, right?
Exactly.
And you didn't have to go to university to learn this. You just understood that this was important, and you set yourself up, right? Sure. So these are 9 practices that entrepreneurs have. And it starts with the first 3, which are most commonly associated with entrepreneurs, which is self-efficacy, risk-taking, and passion. What are you good at? Really good at? You have to understand that, both as a company and as an individual, because that's really your core, right? What are you good at?
What are you good at?
The second is risk-taking. We all take risks. We take risks when we buy a share. We take risks when we cross the street. We take risks when we sit in a car. We all take risks, right? So you've got to learn how to take risks around your area of expertise and experiment, right? Yeah. So risk, and the third is passion. Now, entrepreneurs are lucky because it's passion that drove them to do something, and they built a business, and everybody that works for them is passionate.
Right.
Companies have a different problem. They get parachuted in with a whole bunch of people, and the leaders there don't think that they need to develop passion, purpose. It's all one in the same thing, right? Where do you get passion from, right?
Right.
So when I worked in Tune Hotel, which is a budget hotel, we thought very hard about why do we exist? How do we get people who are passionate about the causes? Why do we build rooms this way? Why do we operate this way? We want that same passion in the people that work for us. And we did it. So, you know, normal businesses, everyday businesses can do it. So it's self-efficacy, risk-taking, and passion being the first 3. Okay. The second 3 are innovation, opportunism, and learning, right? So opportunism, innovation, and learning, because, sorry, I beg your pardon, innovation, opportunism, and learning. You might have to cut that out. It's innovation, opportunism, and learning. And these 3 go together because you have to be opportunistic. And entrepreneurs by nature opportunistic.
Right.
Companies are so worried, and sometimes companies don't do stuff because it's not in their KPI, or the boss doesn't get paid for doing this, right? So they're afraid to risk a little bit. But you
It's
have
not
to be
measurable. It's not measurable, so they
well,
can't.
and they're so, they know that if they do what they did yesterday,
Yeah.
they won't get into trouble.
Right.
But I tell companies, look at the photograph of yours from 5 years ago. You don't look the same.
True.
Look at your hair. I mean, my hair has grown since the pandemic, but
Yeah.
look at your fingernail. It's
Not the
moving,
same.
it's changing. But why do you think tomorrow will be the same as yesterday? It won't be, right? So innovation, opportunism, and learning, because you've got to learn, right? As you experiment, you try, and we all learn, right?
True.
We learn on Zoom not to say good morning, good afternoon, because we don't know where you're listening from. So we say hello.
Hello. That's right. That's very true.
Right. And what the pandemic has said is that you will change, you will learn. And that's natural, right? The last three are realism, persuasion, and execution. Execution is something everybody knows. If you can't execute, as you say for yourself, if you want that balance, but you don't strive for it, you have to execute. So in a nutshell, I mean, I was maybe a little quick, but those are the 9 entrepreneurisms. The main thing I want to tell people is think about being natural. What would you do in this situation? Don't ask people to dig holes and fill them up. I mean, that's being disrespectful.
Right.
But a lot of organizations get people to do stuff which, they know it makes no sense. And they're telling the boss, boss, it's better. There's a better way of doing it. The boss is saying, no, please don't tell me.
So, the challenge, what you're saying makes absolute sense. And I'll say the challenge for some HR departments or some managers of departments when they've got to recruit is they recruiting on an old-fashioned way of doing things. How many degrees has this person got? Whatever. Rather than, can this person do the role based on their experience, their background, their abilities, their talents, the skills they have, what they've been through.
That's right.
I remember I was hiring for one of our companies. I was hiring for a role, and exactly I went where you just said, and I wanted someone with an entrepreneurial background. And this person, she had, I think her and her husband had just closed the business. She just wanted to, have something part-time so she can look after the kids. But she's got the background of entrepreneurism. So for me, it's perfect because I want someone who can think out of the box, take action, be intuitive, and be innovative rather than waiting for me to tell them. So can companies, managers, HR departments, CEOs recruit talent like that? Is it easy to do or not?
You see, you're asking 2 questions. So one is, how do you find the talent? And second is, how do you recruit the talent, right? So the talent is there. Let's be very clear. Look at the number of startups that have formed. I mean, Zoom, we're using Zoom, and look at Zoom, right? Zoom is created by Eric Yuan, who worked for a small company called WebEx, which was acquired by Cisco. Right. So he went to Silicon Valley, I think in 79 or something like that, or no, not 79, 97 or something, and then worked for WebEx. WebEx was acquired by Cisco, and he kept telling Cisco that, let's start a simple product because this is wonderful, Zoom, for enterprise customers. It's got all the safety features, the security, everything. Cisco said, no, it doesn't fit with what our customer wants. Today, Zoom is probably worth half of what Cisco is worth, and they have one product. And Cisco has a whole spectrum of products, right? So the point is that these people exist. Many of these people are actually working for other people now. But they're getting to the point of frustration, so they're leaving. If you want to hire these people, it's not about beanbags and loungers and pool tables. It's about how willing are you to try something new? Is your culture in your organization allowing people to try? Is it allowing people to make mistakes? Is it allowing people to experiment? Because that's what people want. And especially young people today, in the old days, you hire somebody and you show them a progression, right? You're going to start here, then you become a manager. So, progression and power were 2 important things, right? How you progress and the power that you have over people. Today, both things are important, but the P word has changed. So instead of progression, people want the purpose.
Yes.
What is the purpose of this organization?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They want to buy into that. They want to know what it is. And instead of power over people, they want the power to do things.
Right.
So if you have an HR department that's still selling this, work for me for 10 years and Mac, you become a manager and then you become a super manager. Hey, I'm not interested in that. So why are you selling it to me? Sell me how flexible your organization is going to be. Sell me how well you give feedback.
Right.
Sell me these kind of things. Why do you exist?
Mm.
So HR departments are stuck with just process.
Yes. Yes. I see.
And process today is not going to hire talented people.
Yeah. And it's a fast changing world, as we've gathered, as we know, it's very fast. Things are changing. And you're saying the talent is already out there. We've just got to identify them. Share the purpose. Why does this purpose exist? In other words, what I'm hearing, Anwar, is saying, I want fulfillment, not just from salary. I want fulfillment and joy in what I do. And is it making a difference? Is that what we're saying?
Exactly. And Mac, it's exactly what you speak to, right? So the joy of what you're doing. It's not about the beanbag and the latte and the pool table. It's about the joy of what you're doing. And today, organizations have become so dispersed.
Yeah.
That they don't work in the same room. They don't even work in the same town.
True.
And if you're stuck to hiring people with this degree and they must do this and they must work and I'm going to pay them because I can see them from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I mean, that's silly, right?
And
you're paying somebody because you can see them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's old school now, as the last 2 years during this lockdown situations has proven.
That's right.
Not everyone needs to be in the same location for a business to exist.
And people have been so afraid of doing work from home.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody pivoted to work from home.
Yeah.
I mean,
there was no choice.
Employees have been asking for this for a number of years.
Mm.
And employers and bosses have said, no way, no can do. I mean, there's a company, very successful company up north from me in Penang in called PictoChart, run by a lovely couple. They remotely work.
Right.
They are now working 4 days a week. That's it. Oh. They have customers all over the world.
Yeah.
So there's some effort in scheduling, how you work the 4 days. But they work a 4-day week. And they work from home. Now, if you want to recruit the people that work for her at PictoChart, hey, you got to be as good as her company or better. So if you still want to hire people and they have to clock in and they have to come in at 9 and leave at 5, you're not going to get these people.
No.
And why do companies do this? Is because they don't know what the output is. So the only parameter they have to pay you with is how many hours you work.
Yeah.
And they don't even know how many hours you work. They just know how many hours you're there.
Yeah. Anwar, thanks for such great insights here. There's an acronym that you coined, VUCA, VUCA. Yes. And I want to tap into that.
Sure.
Obviously, we live in this, as we've seen in the last couple of years, very uncertain times, very unpredictable times. Tell us about VUCA, VUC. Am I saying it right, VUCA?
You are well. Yeah. I mean, some people say VUCA and some people say VACA, but anyway, whichever way you say it, right? So this term was developed by the U.S. military in response to a situation where they realized that they were gathering the information about an operation in Iraq, and then they were telling their people what needs to be done, and then they were instructing their field officers to execute. Right. And they realized two problems. One is they're not collecting the right information. Two, the situation is changing in between them receiving and thinking about it. And so they realized that if you want to manage in a fast-paced environment, you need to allow flexibility to the people at the ground, right? Okay. And Colin Powell, who was Joint Chief of Staff, right?
Yeah.
He said, in the military, we now spend 30% of our time giving the directive to our subordinates, and then they have 70% of time left to think about how are they going to execute.
Okay.
And you just saw a few weeks ago in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
all the planning, they're going to give us so many days to leave, and the army is going to stay intact. What happened? 24 hours later,
All gone.
everybody the army took off their uniform.
Yeah.
And what's the arsenal that US military left behind? It's tragedy, right? It's a
disaster. Yeah.
It's a disaster. Yeah. Because I don't know, there's somewhere along the line, the information chain gets broken.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a centrally planned economy and you expect only one brain at the top or to think about things, and everybody else's role is to collect, you're going to get disaster.
Absolutely. So VUCA stands for what?
Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Volatile.
So that's VUCA.
Okay.
And one of the professors that we interviewed for the book added an H, which is hyperconnected. So not only are we VUCA, but we're also hyperconnected.
Hyperconnected. And in terms of what? In terms of technology, in terms of...
Yeah, in technology, people, what the pandemic has done is that it's increased our ability to connect with people.
Right.
And it's removed the proximity advantage that was there, right? Yeah. So previously, if you wanted to have a meeting with somebody, chances are first you have a coffee or you drop by their office, right? And you'd build this relationship, and then you would talk about business. So the people who are near the customers had an advantage. Today, that advantage is gone, because whether you live 3 doors away or 3,000 miles away, you're both the same.
True.
And so it's done two things, right? It's allowed your ability to hire people you can't see or work in the same town with, but it's also allowed businesses to hire other people other than from that town.
True. Very true.
And if you look in the long term, what's going to happen, right? You can't protect employment. So, what are countries going to do? What's the sense of a work permit if you don't have to come and work in that country? You can work from anywhere you want. So how are companies, this EU thing, right? It affects physical labor, but that's it.
That's it. Yeah, true. True.
Everybody else, it doesn't really matter whether you're in the EU or out of the EU. You can still be a supplier. You can still be, a resource.
So yeah, great points there. So Anwar, let me ask you this: as a leader, whether you're in corporate, whether it's in your own company, how can one be a better leader based on those 9 entrepreneurisms or the VUCA method that you mentioned? How can one be a better leader based on all the things that we've been discussing just now?
So this it gets a little complicated here, right? So you have the 9 practices, which you have to decide to adopt at different stages, right? So, for example, realism and opportunism are at opposite ends, right? So there are periods where you need to be opportunistic. There are other periods where you need to be realistic. Right. So the 9 are sort of practices that you have. What's the value system? And, Mac, you talk about the value system. The value system is very simple. If you want results, I have 3 R's: recognize, respect, reward.
Okay.
Recognize who has the job to do.
Yeah.
Right? Recognize them. Like if I'm front office and I'm facing the customer, recognize that I'm the boss.
Yeah.
Not the person who is in HR or finance or audit or legal, right? I'm the boss because I deal with the customer. So recognize that. And a lot of times you've got to move the organization away from him. Because organizations stop him from doing things. So you have to recognize and respect him. If he says that this needs to be done, then you need to look at it seriously. And a lot of organizations, I had to pull back, when I worked at Tune Hotel, I had to pull back our finance department because they kept pinging the managers and asking, why did you spend this 200 pounds and why did you spend this? Hello. Is that his job? You're trying to look busy. That's not his job. And then because it appeared on a P&L last month, you sort of zero in. Ask him, how's he dealing with customers? Because the more time he spent dealing with customers, the better the room rate is going to be. And the better the room rate is going to be, the better the revenue is going to be. You're not going to increase revenue by chasing down 200 and 300 pounds. So, you have to have that recognize, respect, and then reward him. Sometimes the rewards don't have to be monetary. They can have value, but they don't have to be monetary. right? So in Tune Hotel, we implemented very simple bonus schemes. So we allocate a certain amount of money to each hotel. And we worked with the hotel manager and said, okay, for the next 3 months, this is our priority. And this is a pot of money that you can give. And the next 3 months, we'll change it. And then so it could be customer service being the first 3 months, it could be room cleanliness, and then reward the people and keep it moving.
Wow.
And then the other reward can also be, hey, you get an extra day off.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll appreciate that, the employees. So yeah, absolutely.
And you have shift schedules. You can always find a way where you can, give some time off, or the reward is in Kentucky vouchers, or the reward is in just recognizing the fact, right?
Yeah. Listen carefully. I mean, Anwar, golden nuggets here. And you're listening to Anwar Jumabhoy, and he is an author. He's a speaker, he's a trainer. He does keynotes. He helps leaders. He helps entrepreneurs. He has a saying, and I love this. He says, you must think like an entrepreneur, manage like an entrepreneur, lead like an entrepreneur, sell like an entrepreneur, hire people like an entrepreneur, and above all, work like an entrepreneur. That means you're going to get better results because it's been more innovative. It's been doing things more on purpose. It has meaning. Your team will be more fulfilled. That's what he's saying here, and I love all this. And tell me something, because I've done a lot of research on you, and you coined something called the Band-Aid solution. Some people just want to put a plaster on it rather than get into the roots of what the real problem is. Anything you want to expand on that?
So, I had a manager who was having a problem with one of his staff. And, every day he'd come in and he'd complain about this, right? So I said to John, if Samantha is not doing this, there's only two reasons. One is she doesn't understand what you are trying to get her to do. Or it could be a third reason. She wants to just piss you off.
Annoy you.
Or she doesn't know how to do it. And rather than complain, why don't you sit down and spend the day with Samantha and just get it done? Right? So, we tend to have the to your point on Band-Aid, we tend to have this, let's implement this Six Sigma, or let's implement this other,
latest.
You don't need all these names.
Yeah.
Before any of these names were created, entrepreneurs existed. Entrepreneurs built the businesses.
Yeah.
And look at all the success stories that we have. They didn't go to management school.
Yeah, true.
They just did what made sense.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs, as you well know, entrepreneurs, you don't sell, you have no money. You have no money, you can't pay people. And you can't blame anybody else.
Yeah.
In an organization, you can always blame somebody else.
True. Yeah. So let me ask you this.
Solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, you cannot blame anybody else.
There's no one.
Look in the mirror and say, you screwed up bad. Okay.
And you got to take it on the chin and go again the next day. So within an organization, you're saying can anyone be an entrepreneur?
Yes, of course.
In an organization,
of course, because you've got to focus on what you can do. People get stuck on what they can't do. And when I talk to people, we're crossing, but when I talk to people and I do some coaching sessions, they always focus on, I can't do this because of this. I can't do this.
Right.
Let's put that aside. Right. We won't even get into why you think you can't. Let's just focus on the 2 or 3 things that you can. Are you finding a purpose for the people that work for you? There's no rule that says you can't do that.
True.
Are you making it more enjoyable for the people that work for you? There's no rule that says you can't do that. So there are many things that you can do.
Right.
Are you allowing them to try new ways of doing things? There's no rule that says you can't do that. So we sort of get hung up on, we want this big, magic wand to come and transform the company. It's like governments, right? And people. People complain about the government all the time, but they won't change their little behaviors.
Yeah.
They won't park in the right place. They won't drive according to the speed limit. They won't litter. They won't wear masks. They won't get vaccinated, but they want the government to be changed.
Right. They won't change their habits, but they want someone else to change. I get it. So what we're saying here, Anwar, what I'm hearing you say, if you're a manager within a company, if you're a leader within a company, think and behave like an entrepreneur. You'll get better
Yes,
results. That's what we're saying, right?
exactly right.
Got
And
it.
it
Got it. Got it. Got it.
and get to grips with why does your company exist?
Yeah. And
That's very easy for smaller companies, harder for larger ones.
yeah.
But if you work at it, there is a reason why you exist.
And you help companies also to discover what the purpose of that company is, what the mission of that company is. Why does it exist? I believe. Is that right?
Exactly. And
Right.
it's not a difficult conversation. It just takes a little bit of time to
Yeah.
explore, and you find it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's been a great conversation here, Anwar. Anwar, for those who want to learn more from you or contact you or connect with you, what's the best and easiest way for them to do that?
I think LinkedIn is probably easiest, or my website. And I think if you share that at the end,
Right,
that would be
sure.
great.
So anwarjumabhoy.com. Yeah,
That's correct.
we'll put that link up as well so that people can connect with you. And I would say it's been a fascinating conversation here, and not many people think in that respect. And I would say this, that there was many years ago when I was teaching corporates, and I used to use the term intrapreneur.
Yes,
So an intrapreneur would be someone who works within an organization, but thinking like an entrepreneur in order to get much better results. And guess what? If you behave like an entrepreneur, and you will be the first to get promoted, you'll be the first one to get a pay rise, you'll be the last one to be sacked. Why? Because you are making a difference. You're not a robot.
exactly.
You're not just coming in, clocking out, but you're actually giving solutions, ideas, suggestions, making a difference. So I love what you are saying there. It's in line of how I think as well. And I'm sure our listeners will love that. Any final words, Anwar, before we say bye for now?
Entrepreneurs are not different people. They just do things differently. You can too.
You can too. You heard it from Anwar Jumabhoy. Check him out, anwarjumabhoy.com, all the way from Malaysia, having worked all around the world, including Switzerland and the UK and all these different places. He has a wealth of knowledge, over 40 years experience in business and management. Check him out. Until we speak again, God bless, much love. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep growing your businesses. Reach out to me if I can help as well. Bye for now. Take care. And Anwar, thank you for being here. And I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Thank you.
Cheers, Mike.
You're welcome.